Hey everyone, we're diving into a really important article today from DailyCaring.com, and it's about a topic that can be so confusing: DNRs and POLSTs. Knowing the difference between these two end-of-life forms isn't just about getting paperwork right, it's about making absolutely sure that your loved one's final wishes are respected. So let's get into it.
I want you to just picture this for a second. There's a medical emergency. The paramedics are there in the house, everything's happening fast, and your loved one, they can't speak for themselves. This is the exact moment we all hope never comes, but it's the one we have to be ready for. So who's going to speak for them? And what will they say?
Because here's the tough truth. Having the wrong form, or maybe no form at all, can lead to some truly heartbreaking situations. It can mean your loved one ends up receiving aggressive treatments they never ever wanted, all because their wishes weren't written down in the correct, legally binding way.
All right, so let's start with the one most people have probably heard of, the DNR. We're going to break down what it is, and maybe even more importantly, what it isn't. Okay, so a DNR, or Do Not Resuscitate order, is pretty much what it sounds like. It is an official medical order that has to be signed by a doctor, and it tells all medical staff not to perform CPR if that person's heart stops beating or they stop breathing. That's it. It's a very specific command about one single procedure.
And this is the part you absolutely have to remember. A DNR is only about CPR. It has nothing to do with any other kind of medical care. Your loved one would still get medicine for pain, they'd still get nutrition, antibiotics, all of that comfort care continues. The DNR has just one very narrow job.
Now let's talk about the POLST form, because it's a whole different ballgame. You know, if a DNR is like a single, specific instruction, the POLST is more like a full-blown instruction manual.
A POLST stands for Physician Orders for Life-Sustaining Treatment, and just like a DNR, it's a signed medical order. But the big difference is that it covers a whole range of treatments someone might or might not want near the end of life. It's much more detailed. So the POLST is really designed to work in a real-world emergency. It's a medical order that emergency responders have to follow by law. And to make sure it gets noticed in a crisis, it's usually printed on bright pink paper. You really can't miss it. Now, this form is typically for someone who is terminally ill or very frail. Someone for whom these tough decisions could be right around the corner.
Okay, time for the main event. Let's put these two forms side by side. This is where you'll really see which one might be the right choice.
If you forget everything else from our chat today, please remember this. The biggest difference between a DNR and a POLST is all about their scope. One is a quick note, the other is the whole story.
And here's what that looks like in practice. A DNR gives one and only one instruction: what to do about CPR. That's it. But a POLST, it covers a whole variety of treatments, and it turns those bigger, broader wishes into very specific, actionable medical orders.
Let's just break it down visually. With a DNR, you are answering one single question: yes to CPR or no to CPR. And that's it. The instruction is complete. Now look at the POLST. It also covers CPR, but then it keeps going. It gets into what level of medical care they want. Are we talking comfort measures only or full treatment? It asks about whether they want to go to the hospital. It even gets into the really specific stuff like artificial nutrition, feeding tubes. It's just a much deeper, more detailed conversation.
So, knowing the difference between the forms, that's half the battle. But the other half, which is just as important, is making sure those wishes are actually followed when it really counts.
Because you have to understand this. Our emergency system has a default setting, and that setting is to do everything possible to save a life. Without a signed, visible medical order like a DNR or a POLST, paramedics are legally required to try and resuscitate someone. They can't just stop unless they have that official paper in their hands.
So how do you get one? Well, it all starts with a conversation. First, you talk to your loved one about what they want. Then, you take that conversation to their doctor. The doctor will give you the right form for your state, and, this is the most important part, the doctor has to sign it. That signature is what turns it into a real, legally binding medical order.
Look, a form that nobody can find is a form that does no good. So once you have it, you have to make it visible. The number one spot? The refrigerator. EMTs are trained to look there. Keep another copy by the bed. Give a copy to every doctor, every caregiver, and every important family member. Your goal is to make it impossible for anyone to miss it in an emergency.
I know these are hard conversations to have. They really are. But it can help to try and reframe it in your mind. This isn't just about planning for something bad. It's about giving the gift of clarity and making sure the care they receive is guided by respect.
The article from DailyCaring.com puts it so perfectly with this quote:
You're not just filling out a form. What you're really doing is creating a roadmap. You're making sure that your loved one's own values are the things that guide their journey, even when they can't be the ones holding the map.
And really, that's what it all comes down to. By having these talks and getting the right form filled out, you replace all that chaos and uncertainty of a crisis with the quiet confidence of a clear plan. And that is such a gift for them, for you, and for the entire medical team.
So we'll leave you with that question to think about. This has been our deep dive based on the fantastic work over at DailyCaring.com. For more great resources, you can find them online, and be sure to subscribe to the Caregiver channel on YouTube. Thanks for tuning in.